Hello guys, it's Jed again. Welcome back. Hope you're having a good day. We're going for something a bit different tonight. Somebody sent me an email with a few links to a few people involved in the research I do, the revisionist history about the Celtic tribes, about ancient civilizations from the Middle East. A lot of interesting comments Beaumont recently as well. I got a good reception about reading that book. So I did try to look for the other Commons Beaumont book that was recommended, but it cost, what was it called? I think The Age of Deception, I think it was called. But somebody's managed to copyright that book and it cost like $60 or £44. So I'll probably read that another time when I've got the funds to buy the book itself, because I can't find it at all. Or unless anyone's got a PDF version, they can maybe pass to me. But I found this book by Anna Wilkes, and it's called Ireland, Ur of the Chaldees. And obviously this is connected with the Celtic people and the Holy Land. And Ur of the Chaldees, this was supposedly a place in Syria where Abraham, one of the Jewish patriarchs, was born. And it kind of links back to me, the Chaldees. It's obvious, well, just in the word itself, it looks like Caledonian, like Caledonian, and the Druids. I think there's a connection between the Chaldees and the Caledonians and the Druids and their own kind of religion before Christianity, or probably a form of Christianity that was turned into something else by Rome. But anyway guys, enough of my babbling, should we say. I'll continue to read this book, but like I said, I think you'll enjoy it if you're if you're into your revisionist history and you enjoyed the Commons Beaumont. I think you'll like this as well, guys. So it's quite an old book, published in, I think it was 1875, something like that. Ireland, Ur of the Chaldees, by Anna Wilkes. London, 1873. I was off by 2 years. So it's an old book, and this is a good thing about these old books. Books have got a copyright limit, like a sell-by date, should we say. Like 70 years. I learned this in college when I was learning about copyright. And that was a good thing about Commons Beaumont, that his stuff was the first book I read, the history of Britain. That was copyright free. But somebody got their paws on the other one. I think it's called The Age of Deception or something like that. But it's pretty expensive. Anyway, I'll start with the preface. The material that has engaged my attention in the following pages is principally taken from the Mosaic, the Quran, Talmud, and Celtic references to the first peoples and places. As far as possible, I have avoided loading the subject with technical terms and problems to be met with anthropology, a science necessarily contributing considerable matter to the text, but have preferred to use it in its history, tradition, folklore, and other interests that go towards a proof that the first human families must have migrated from the west of Europe to Asia, and not from Asia to the west of Europe. And this is what I think about Celtic culture as well, people. I'll just add that the theory is that the Celtic culture started in Austria-Hungary area and spread over to Britain, where I think the Celtic culture began in Britain and spread east as far as the Holy Land, and probably to Egypt as well. Anyway, I'll continue. This may appear strange to some people, but will occur to the reflecting and intelligent mind that it is quite possible to do over again some of the work of scripture commentators and interpreters, and be it at the same time in perfect harmony with the Bible, For instance, the sites of the principal countries, cities and places mentioned in that book are by their own confession, up to the present, unascertained. Therefore, the necessity existed for reconsidering the teachings of men as distinguished from the lessons of the Bible, which, for my part, are accepted as correct and veracious. In the following pages, there is no allusion to the doctrine of independent development, but they admit that human beings multiplied from a first pair. As far as I know, I have not offended the prejudices of any people or creed. In making much reference to the first inhabitants of the British Islands, there has been an endeavour to show that a great deal of the past, the prehistoric as well as the historic past, is marked by their actions. From this it is advised that the descendants, as well as those esteeming themselves of Saxon, Danish or Norman blood, should remove the race asperities that so frequently operate against one another, and join with the Celt in mutual respect and prosperity. Because thousands of years have passed away with man, in the correct register of his first existence and efforts here, so, like others, but not in a general way, I have felt obliged to labour and to particularize and bring together out of the confused yet evident relationship of primeval man, the similarities of his thoughts as they are written, of his speech as it is known, and of the signs that endure from his chisel and pen. How high I have succeeded in this is now to be judged by my critics. It may be the task I have undertaken will appear to them too difficult for the grasp of a woman's mind. That it has been difficult I willingly confess, and perhaps the pages will indicate this more than I am conscious of. They are, however, the product of years of reading and reflection, and as such have been thought worthy of publication. Whether this book be or not successful, and its success cannot be reckoned by its completeness, there are such quantities of like material yet unused, that it will be at no distant date drawn upon and put forth in periodical. I cannot allow this volume to go to the world without expressing my sincere and heartfelt acknowledgments of the ready and kind assistance that I have never ceased to receive from my husband throughout the whole of my work and investigations. His constant reading of biblical history, his profound and unalterable faith in that book of books, has enabled me to supplement, to illustrate, and to enforce my convictions on the subject which I have undertaken, whilst his devotion to the cause we have both at heart rendered his suggestions doubly valuable, and more than doubly welcome. Anna Wilkes, Upper Norwood, September 1873. She sounds like a very free-thinking woman for her day. 1873. And pretty educated. Introduction. Perhaps nothing is more characteristic of the present age than the advances made from all quarters in the cause of truth. Dogma, as well as theory, is subjected to the investigations of the thoughtful, and nothing is allowed to pass as true without bearing its full complement of laudation and abuse. Facts often make their appearance with unwinning surroundings, and it is not until they have stood their proper time under examination that they are admitted to the confidence of the knowing. They are then often fondled and make slaves of their admirers for the secrets extracted from them. So it is that, within the memory of men, new sciences are forming, and are accepted, from what were considered at one time but dreams and ridiculous speculations. But if we suffer, we grow wise with time. There are notably among the discoveries we may say of the present age such representative words as anthropology, ethnology, and philology, kindred sciences, each of which, while possessing great interest for the ordinary reader, makes it compulsory upon those who lay claim to superior education to be at least acquainted with them. From the mines of wealth worked by the lovers of these sciences is collected much that is contained in the following pages. If we shape our own fabric out of them, in it will be found nothing to offend those who follow truth for its own sake, while respecting the beliefs and prejudices of others. The subject purpose says that the locality of the Chaldea of Genesis has not hitherto been discovered, and that it has not been proven to have ever existed in the East. Those who consider it as having been in the East attach themselves to an error that dates probably from the period of the first migrations of the human family. How? Principally because men, families, and tribes of men removed in time and place and manifesting their moral and physical nature through fear or courage, in defence, offence, spirit of aggrandizement, self-assertion, and from the influences of the motive of their existence, seen in other families and tribes, separated, perhaps from time of their first dispersion, enemies and encroachers, feel most things but not the truth of their common origin. So to each of the opposing people, the directions taken over the continents, the settlements made, and civil prosperities created by each, or perhaps the kingdoms and civilizations they became aware of, or traded with, or assailed on their way, are for the most part lost to the knowledge of each. What knowledge cannot give, idea supplies. Its procession through the mind is grand and imposing according as the cause is great. If great, it has power of inducing awe, and presenting itself in grand assumption, pointing to the exact country inhabited by primeval men. The language they spoke, what their religion was, and conjures up everything necessarily to the seeming of truth, and the obligation of recording events and things. Like stars looking through the majesty of the sky, the elements of truth sparkle in idea, and give spread and consequence to its creation, and to no ebullition of fancy so much as that which forms around the truth of man's first existence, his locations and wander on earth to another existence. The fact is, mankind has been long persuaded that in the East was contained almost all the scripture's sites, wrongly interpreting what we are told in Genesis that the beginning of Nimrod's kingdom was Babel and Erech and Akkad and Calneh in the land of Shinar, and that Ashur went out of that land and builded Nineveh, and assisted more than anything else to make this believed. But nevertheless, it has always been a complete mystery where was Shinar. Mistaking the situation of Shinar made it necessary to find Chaldea and other countries either in or near it. Thus, Shinar is supposed to mean in Hebrew, as shown in our pages, something like two river. This significance no doubt was found because it was thought it must be near or between the Tigris and Euphrates. But, even if the etymology be admitted, it is an unsatisfactory explanation of the position of so important a place as we must have believed Shinar to have been. Shinar, to the commentators, is often only a convertible term for Aram, Naharam, and Mesopotamia, which bear an interpretation between the rivers, or the country between the Tigris and Euphrates. As to Chaldea, the name has no meaning in any of the Semitic tongues. We refer the earnest inquirer to our text for full information on the state of the question. So that's the end of the introduction and the preface. Here we have the contents. Chapter 1, the existence of Chaldea, its situation not in the East. Chapter 2, remarks on the sons of Noah and their tongues. Chapter 3, Shinar is Europe. Chapter 4, Chaldea is in Western Europe, reference to the religion of the Chaldees. Chapter 5, Ur of the Chaldees, reference to Ireland as Ur. Chapter 6, the cross of Chaldean symbol. Chapter 7, the sons of Noah and their descendants. Chapter 8, the sons of Ham and his descendants in Western Europe, prophecy against the Isles and retrospect of Habakkuk. Chapter 9, Cush and Nimrod. Chapter 10, Cushites and Hyperboreans. Chapter 11, the sons of Shem. Chapter 12, Salah. Chapter 13, Heber. Chapter 14, Terah and Abraham. Ireland, Ur of the Chaldees. So there you have it, guys. I'll begin a new video beginning with chapter 1. But thanks to Blair for pointing me this direction. It's a pity I couldn't do another Commons boom out, but I'll see if I can find another book of his I could read. But yep, it's interesting stuff, this revisionist history, and I do think that the biblical places, even the Bible itself, was created in these isles, or Europe itself, not in the Middle East. I think even the religions, the three base religions, have their roots based in Celtic or European origins. Anyway, I'm rambling. I hope you enjoyed the beginning of this, and I'll see you in chapter 1. Cheers, guys.